Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice radio, so today I'm going to be showing you a little bit of Pokemon Trading Card Game history. I know a bunch of you guys really like these history videos. I don't always get the chance to do them as often as I would like, but today I've got some time. We are looking at the best cards from the Majestic Dawn expansion. A set which had 3 phenomenal cards that really helped to shape the format, 1 Pokemon that won Worlds, and a bunch of stuff that kind of got played here and there. Alrighty then, so let's start off with number 10, Zapdos. Zapdos was an alright Pokemon that really saw play for the ability Sheet Lightning. Put it from your hand onto your bench, flip a coin, if heads, 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. This was used in some decks to get a little bit of extra damage down, and of course could be reused with something like Super Scoop Up. It was kind of like a supercharged version of the old Jolteon star from back in the day. Decent Pokemon, saw a bit of play here and there, was not anything that set the world on fire. Coming in at number 9, I'm cheating a little bit so I can get it all into a top 10. I am lumping in Glaceon Lv.X and Garchomp Lv.X, or as I like to put them, Lv.X's that saw a little bit of play here and there. Glaceon had a phenomenal Pokebody which stopped your opponent using any Poke Powers, which is quite nice, and this was in a format, right, where Claydol and Uxie were absolutely everywhere, so it really was a big deal turning off these Poke Powers. Unfortunately, it just didn't really have an attack that could fit in. That's not to say it didn't see play, and that's not to say it wasn't a good card. That is basically just to say that it never really was able to, I suppose, live up to its potential. The attack just wasn't good enough, and the card as a whole was a bit too slow. Garchomp Lv.X, by which I mean not Garchomp C Lv.X, which was a significant amount better, was a fine card. Restore was really nice, just searching your discard pile for a Pokemon and putting it onto your bench as a basic Pokemon. Then putting 3 basic energy cards from your discard pile onto it, really nice. And when you put Garchomp Lv.X onto your active Garchomp, flip 3 coins for each heads, put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It did see a little bit of success at US Nationals. It was a fun little card, but it really was massively overshadowed by Garchomp C Lv.X. And now that I think about it, I really am doing a disservice to Leafeon Lv.X, so let's chuck it in here at number 9 as well. Poke Power allowed you to attach an extra energy card during your turn, which is nice, and it was any energy card. And for 2 energy, 30 damage plus 10 more for each energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Thinking back, this might have seen the most play of all of them, but it was still a niche deck. It wasn't a deck that really ruled the format, and I still don't really think it should be any higher than 9, but it definitely should be chucked in with these other 2. And now it has been. Coming in at number 8, we saw Scizor. Scizor really was here for the 1 energy special blow. 30 damage, but if the defending Pokemon has any special energy cards attached to it, you do 80 damage. 80 for 1 would be good nowadays in the Pokemon Trading Card Game. Back then, oh my goodness, it really was good. And this was a format where we still had stuff like Scramble Energy running around and all sorts of other really good cards that did see quite a lot of play. Never really found itself in the top tiers like that, but a very efficient card that deserves to be on the list. In at number 7, I'm cheating again. These are 2 cards that I personally played around with and were really quite fun. There is an Umbreon that says each of your Pokemon that evolve from Eevee has no weakness and free retreat, and an Espeon that said each of your Pokemon that evolves from Eevee get 20 more HP. Personally, I use this with the Umbreon from Undaunted, Moonlight Fang FTW, but it was something that could be used in a whole bunch of Evolution decks. You got both of them out and your Evolutions had no weakness, free retreat and 20 more HP. It wasn't at a time when Evolutions were ruling the format, so it wasn't like it instantly made some decks amazing, but it was a lot of fun and it made Evolutions an awful lot better. In at number 6, Dawn Stadium. A really nice stadium that whenever any player attaches an energy card, and that's any energy, not just basic, to a grass or water Pokemon, remove 1 damage counter and all special conditions from that Pokemon. It didn't mean that you played it in every deck with grass or water Pokemon, but it did mean that you at least had to consider it. It was great healing and especially getting rid of special conditions, and it meant that you really didn't have to worry about special conditions as long as you were able to actually get this out into play. And any card which really deserves consideration in 2 different types of decks, as in Pokemon types, really does deserve to be on the list. And this is where we really start moving up into the really good portion of the list. Majestic Dawn was a fairly top-heavy set, and honestly, there are other cards that could have come in previously instead of the ones I've put in here, and you could really jumble up the order. But I think 1 to 5 really is a flat 1 to 5. And in at number 5, Mewtwo. This was really good. Energy absorption for 0 energy, search your discard pile for up to 2 energy cards, and attach them to Mewtwo. Now, it wasn't really Mewtwo that we liked here, it was Mewtwo Lv.X, but Mewtwo Lv.X was in Legends Awakened, hence why it doesn't get into this video, other than as an evolution of this Mewtwo. Mewtwo Lv.X was amazing. It basically blocked basic Pokemon, and bearing in mind this was a time when SP decks were ruling the format. There's our friend Garchomp C Lv.X again. And it had a decent attack, 120, but you discarded all the energy, so then you would use energy absorption on the Majestic Dawn Mewtwo so that you could come back and attack essentially 2 turns later. Attack with a Lv.X, energy absorption. Attack with the Lv.X, energy absorption. This was a phenomenal tech against SP decks, and we saw 1/1 Mewtwo lines in a whole bunch of different decks, and what really made it possible was this Mewtwo. The Lv.X is a star of the show, but this Mewtwo really made it viable and was the only Mewtwo to really consider here. And then we get into the top 4, which is huge. At number 4, and I feel really mean putting him at number 4, Empoleon, a card so good it won the World Championships. Not the only Empoleon that won the World Championships. See my every Empoleon ever video for more on that. I'll pop a link in the description. It looks to our 2018 eyes as a fairly unremarkable Pokemon. 30 to each of 2 Pokemon for 2 energy. 50 damage plus 10 more for each of your bench Pokemon. Flip a coin if tails 10 to each of your bench for free energy. But what you would do here is use Cessation Crystal to turn off Poker Powers and Poker Bodies, because you're not relying on EX cards, and then you would have stuff like Scramble Energy that I mentioned before that you could use, and even though it looks initially a little bit meh, the combination of being able to use stuff like Scramble Energy to get rolling and turn off Poker Powers while you're not really relying on them made it a phenomenal deck, and it did win the 2008 World Championships when it was piloted by Dylan the Favor. Sorry for the pronunciation. A deserving card at number 4, but not one of the top 3 cards, because the next 3 cards really helped a whole bunch of decks. In at number 3, Unown Q. And not unlike, and more recent players will remember Klefki, which did a similar thing, you could actually attach this to one of your Pokemon as a Pokemon tool, and you paid 1 energy less to retreat that Pokemon. Now, this is in a format where we didn't have stuff like Float Stone, for instance, and we did have a whole bunch of Pokemon like Uxie, for instance, that had a retreat cost of 1. I could keep going, but I'm going to keep the video fairly brief here. It was amazing and was played in a ridiculous amount of decks and saw a huge amount of play, but was not as good as Chatot. Chatot is a card that's come up in a few of my history videos previously, because it is amazing. 0 energy, shuffle your hand into your deck, and draw a number of cards equal to the number of cards in your opponent's hand. I.e., it's a copycat, but you get to do it for 0 energy, and it's on a basic Pokemon that has free retreat. It was a phenomenal consistency card that was played in a whole bunch of decks, because the theory here was very simple. If you don't have a good start to the game, you bring out Chatot and you are rolling. It was great, but not the best card in the set, ladies and gentlemen. That goes to Cool Energy, and I did check. Cool Energy was not actually released in any other set whatsoever. It was only ever in Majestic Dawn, and Cool Energy really was an almost format-defining card. It was one colourless energy, but if you attach it to your active, you can search for 2 basic Pokemon, put them on your bench, and your turn ends. Nowadays, it would be kind of like a Bridget, but it was in a format where we didn't have stuff like Bridget, but we did have Cool Energy. And then you could use that energy to retreat next turn or to play part of the attack cost or whatever. There were a lot of decks that relied on using Cool Energy to start getting their basics out. All of them were made better. Cool Energy was one of those cards that just made every deck it went into better and more consistent, and it has to go in at number 1. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, a top-heavy set. Cool Energy, Chatot, and Unown really were staple cards in a whole heap of decks, and Empoleon was so good it won the World Championships. Outside of that, we had a few useful cards here and there. We had Mewtwo, which was pretty good, but it was still a fun set, and it gave us some great cards. But maybe you were playing back then. Maybe you remember the top cards of this set a little differently. I would legitimately love to hear from you, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWossy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. And do check out my other channel, Wossy Plays, for some Dragon Ball Super and video game action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.